Good leaders are not the ones with authority. They are the ones with responsibility. Responsibility not for results, but for people. Leadership is not a rank. It's not a title. Leadership is a choice made by those who decide to serve first. And today, I want to share Simon Sinek's top 3 leadership traits that separate the managers from the leaders, the bosses from the visionaries. Most leaders lead with what they do or how they do it. Great leaders start with why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When leaders communicate their belief, they inspire action. Not because their teams have to follow them, but because they want to. The role of a leader is not to convince, it's to inspire. Think of Martin Luther King Jr. He didn't say, "I have a plan." He stood on that podium and said, "I have a dream." That dream, that why, united millions before any strategy was ever written. A leader without a clear why may achieve compliance. A leader with a why creates commitment. Leadership is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge. Empathy means we don't just listen to respond, we listen to understand. Too many leaders demand performance before providing support. Great leaders do the opposite. They first invest in the person, then performance follows naturally. Imagine meeting someone struggling at work. A manager asks, "Why are you failing?" A leader asks, "How can I help?" Empathy isn't weakness. It's strength. It's the courage to put others before ourselves. When trust exists in a team, people don't hold back. They don't hide mistakes. They don't protect themselves, they protect each other. Simon Sinek says, "The only way to build trust is through vulnerability." Trust grows when a leader is human enough to say, "I don't know." When a leader puts their hand up and admits, "That was my fault." That vulnerability gives everyone permission to do the same. And that's when innovation begins. Leaders who demand perfection create fear. Leaders who accept vulnerability create growth. When we talk about leadership, most people immediately jump into profit margins, targets, performance indicators, and plans. But none of those truly define leadership. They define outcomes, and outcomes are a result of something much deeper. Real leadership begins not with what we do or even how we do it, but with why we do it. That single word "why" is the difference between an average leader who gets results and an extraordinary one who inspires people to go beyond what's expected of them. People don't get inspired by what you do. They don't commit themselves because of the tasks on your agenda. They commit because they believe in the reason behind it all. Human beings are emotional creatures before we are rational thinkers. We don't wake up every day excited to achieve someone else's goals. We wake up energized when we believe that the work we do contributes to something larger than ourselves. Think about it this way. If you tell someone, "We need to increase revenue by 10%, that is a task. If you tell them, "We are going to help millions of people gain access to education," that is a cause. People will give their energy, creativity, and resilience for a cause. They will simply comply with a task. A leader who communicates what needs to be done achieves short-term results. A leader who communicates why it matters inspires long-term loyalty and engagement. When people feel connected to the deeper purpose behind the effort, they don't work harder because they're told to. They work harder because they want to. They innovate not because it's demanded, but because they believe in the mission and take ownership. The why is what transforms a job into a purpose and a workforce into a movement. Consider some of the most influential figures in history. None of them started by describing their strategies. They began with belief, "I have a dream," and not "I have a plan." Belief precedes action. A good leader presents direction. A great leader sparks belief. That belief is what moves people. It connects everyone with a shared sense of meaning. And when that happens, A team doesn't just function efficiently, they grow unstoppable. But let's be clear. Starting with why isn't about sounding inspirational or adding motivational quotes to presentations. It's about deeply understanding your core belief and making decisions through that lens. It's about asking, what do we truly stand for? Why does our work matter? Why should anyone choose to follow us? Clarity of purpose shapes everything, from the culture you create to the standards you uphold. When a leader consistently demonstrates alignment between their actions and their purpose, trust develops. But when leaders say one thing and do another, even if they believe it themselves, people can feel the disconnect. And when there is no alignment, there is no genuine leadership. Starting with why also gives resilience during times of difficulty. Challenges and setbacks are inevitable, plans fail, revenue dips, but purpose remains. If people are only driven by targets, they lose motivation when targets become unreachable. But if they're driven by a cause, they keep moving forward, not because they're obligated, but because they're committed. There's something powerful in seeing people willingly sacrifice comfort and go beyond expectations not for recognition, but because they believe the work matters. And that is not a result that can be demanded. It must be inspired. You don't get that by telling people what to do. You get it by showing them why their contribution serves something meaningful. Every leader has the opportunity to influence or inspire. Influence is transactional. You get what you ask for, but rarely more. Inspiration is transformational. You get more than what you ask for because people give more than what is required. If you want to lead effectively, begin by reflecting on your own why. Not the objectives you want to achieve, but the belief that fuels those objectives. If you don't know your why, others will struggle to believe in it. And without belief, there can be no real leadership. The most powerful leaders don't convince people to follow. They give people a reason to join. They don't push. They pull. They don't seek authority. They earn trust. And it all starts when a leader stops talking about what and begins sharing why. Because at the heart of true leadership is not the ability to direct others, but the ability to inspire them. And inspiration comes not from instruction, but from conviction. And when a leader leads with conviction, people don't just follow. They believe. There's a universal truth about leadership that often goes overlooked. People don't follow leaders because they're instructed to. They follow because they choose to. The difference may seem subtle, but it separates those who merely manage from those who inspire. Leadership is never about having power over people. It's about having people trust you enough that they willingly give you their energy, their effort, and their loyalty. That willingness cannot be forced. It can only be earned. When someone follows because they have to, what you gain is compliance. They do what is required, no more and no less. They protect themselves first because the relationship is transactional. But when people follow because they want to, what you get is commitment. They don't work to avoid punishment or to check a box. They work because they believe in something and because they believe in you. Their motivation shifts from self-preservation to contribution. Managers rely on authority, leaders rely on influence. One is positional, the other is relational. The title might give someone the right to issue instructions, but it doesn't guarantee their team will show up with their full heart. The moment people believe that they are safe with their leader, that the leader truly cares about their growth, their well-being, their future, something powerful happens. They invest themselves. That investment is voluntary. It cannot be mandated. Imagine working for someone who constantly reminds you of their position, their experience, or their power. You would comply because you feel you must. But what happens when you work for someone who says, "I'm here for you. I want to see you succeed. Your growth matters more than my recognition." You don't follow because you're told to. You follow because you feel valued. You go the extra mile because you want to contribute, not just complete. The essence of leadership lies in creating an environment where people are not afraid to take initiative, make mistakes, or share ideas. And people only do that when they choose to follow. When the choice is theirs, it tells us they feel safe. They feel seen. They trust that if they stumble, the leader won't punish them, but will help them rise. A leader creates room for people to be human, and in turn, people allow the leader to lead them. Choice is powerful. It means ownership. When people choose to follow, they take responsibility for outcomes. They don't blame, they contribute. They don't just perform their role, they protect the mission, and they do it not for the leader's approval, but because they believe the direction is meaningful. Leadership is not the art of getting people to work harder. It's the art of helping people find value in the work they do. When they discover that value, they naturally give more. They put heart into what they do because someone believed in their potential. Think about the leaders who impacted you most in life. Chances are, they weren't the ones who had the highest rank or spoke the loudest. They were the ones who made you feel capable. They unlocked something in you, something not even you were certain of. They didn't demand your effort, you offered it. What makes people choose to follow? Not confidence in the leader's ability, but confidence in the leader's sincerity. People don't need leaders to be perfect. They need them to be human. They need to believe that the leader will protect them before protecting numbers. When people feel that, they reciprocate with loyalty. The difference between forced compliance and sincere commitment becomes evident in difficult times. Under pressure, people who are merely complying will do only what is required to survive. Those who are committed will work to ensure the team succeeds. They'll volunteer solutions, stay longer, collaborate more. But it all begins with one intentional choice from the leader: to prioritize people over power, to serve rather than command. When leaders lead in a way that honors the humanity of their followers, followers respond in kind. And that response, freely given, is what creates exceptional teams. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge, and when people know they're cared for, they choose to follow. Not because they must, but because they believe it's worth it. If there's one thing that determines whether a team merely survives or truly thrives, it's trust. Not the kind of trust that comes from agreements or policies, but the kind that originates from shared vulnerability. Trust isn't built in board meetings or outlined in contracts. It's built in the quiet moments when a leader chooses honesty over authority, when someone feels safe enough to say, "I need help," without fear of judgment. Trust is the invisible force that transforms a group of individuals into a united team. People don't open up to those who appear flawless. They open up to those who appear human. When a leader pretends to know everything, their team hesitates to admit mistakes or lack of clarity. If the leader won't show vulnerability, neither will the team. And when no one admits gaps, problems go unnoticed until they become crises. But when a leader has the courage to say, "I don't have all the answers," or "I made the wrong call," it gives everyone permission to be truthful. That truth is what protects teams from failure. Too many leaders believe that power comes from invincibility. In reality, power comes from authenticity. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of trust. When leaders remove the mask and show who they really are, flaws, doubts, and all they're saying to their team, "I believe in you enough to show you who I am," and that act invites reciprocity. People respond to truth with truth. In environments where vulnerability is discouraged, people avoid risks. They hide mistakes, they protect themselves, they avoid ideas that might fail. Innovation suffocates under fear. But in environments where leaders actively encourage openness, where it's safe to say, "I'm not sure," or "I need guidance," something incredible happens, creativity flourishes. People start taking initiative without waiting for perfect certainty. They collaborate without defensiveness. They grow without hesitation. There's a small but telling difference between survival mode teams and trust-based teams. In survival mode, the unspoken question people ask is, what happens to me if I get this wrong? In trust-based environments, the question shifts to, what happens to us if we don't try? That shift from fear to responsibility is leadership's greatest achievement. Consider how people act when they're around someone they trust. They speak freely, they admit when they're stuck. They offer ideas even if those ideas might be imperfect. They take on difficult tasks because they know they won't be blamed if they need help along the way. Trust empowers people to move toward the unknown with confidence, not because the path is guaranteed, but because they know they won't walk it alone. Leaders often believe that being right maintains their authority. In truth, being real maintains their influence. Followers don't expect leaders to be perfect. They expect them to be honest. When leaders take responsibility for mistakes instead of shifting blame, they teach their teams to do the same. This shared accountability builds not only trust but loyalty. Trust is also the foundation of resilience. In hard times, a team without trust fractures. People look for someone to blame, for ways to protect themselves. But a team built on trust responds to challenges by coming together. They don't point fingers, they extend hands. They lean into the problem collectively because they know their leader believes in them, and because they believe in each other. If you want to know whether a leader has built trust, don't look at how people act when things are going well. Look at how they behave when things go wrong. Do they hide? Do they hesitate? Or do they speak up and collaborate with urgency? Trust doesn't eliminate difficulty, but it eliminates the fear that magnifies that difficulty. The simplest way a leader builds trust is by leading with vulnerability. This doesn't mean oversharing or seeking sympathy. It means showing up authentically, owning mistakes, asking for input, and putting people before reputation. It means prioritizing truth over perfection. When a leader demonstrates that, they teach their teams to do the same. Because leadership isn't about being the strongest in the room. It's about being strong enough to not pretend. And when leaders allow themselves to be seen, they give others permission to step forward. That's when safety turns into strength and a group turns into a movement. Trust doesn't just support leadership, it defines it. We often live under the illusion that strength comes from power, authority, and control. But true strength lies in something far more subtle and far more impactful: humility. The ability to admit mistakes, to acknowledge imperfection, to be honest even when it is uncomfortable, that is the foundation of vulnerability. And vulnerability is where trust takes root. Without it, relationships stay superficial, teams stay cautious, and people remain guarded. But when someone, especially a leader, opens themselves to vulnerability, something remarkable happens. Others begin to feel safe, safe enough to be honest, safe enough to be flawed, and safe enough to grow. When we pretend to be perfect, we create fear in those around us. People start thinking, if I show weakness, if I fail, I will be judged. So they hide their reality. They suppress their questions, they suffer in silence. But if leaders, parents, spouses, mentors can instead say, I make mistakes too, I don't know everything, I need help sometimes, then we shift from fear to connection. Vulnerability invites connection, and connection leads to healing, development, and unity. When someone feels the freedom to say, I'm struggling, without fear of criticism, they open the door to support. When someone can raise their hand and admit, I was wrong, that moment becomes a turning point, not a downfall. It becomes a sign of maturity, not incompetence. Vulnerability teaches people that imperfection is not failure, It is part of being human. The greatest mistake is not that someone fell, it is that no one saw them struggling before they did. In leadership, vulnerability is often misunderstood. Many assume it means weakness, emotional instability, or lack of confidence. In truth, it takes more courage to be vulnerable than to be defensive. Anyone can pretend to be strong. Very few can risk being real. But when people experience authenticity, they respond with trust because they recognize truth. And trust cannot be demanded. It must be earned through transparency. A leader who says, "I don't know," invites collaboration. A leader who says, "I'm sorry," creates accountability. A leader who says, "I made a mistake, but here's what I've learned," generates resilience. Vulnerability does not lower the bar. It raises the standard of character. It encourages others to grow not out of fear, but out of inspiration. Think about it. When was the last time you felt safe enough to tell someone your deepest struggle? That person did not earn your trust by being perfect. They earned it by being present, by listening without judgment, by being human. That same principle applies to every professional and personal relationship. Whether it's a classroom, workplace, family, or marriage, vulnerability transforms dynamics. It shifts the focus from image to truth, from ego to growth. When people are not afraid to show vulnerability, they don't waste energy hiding their flaws. Instead, they channel their energy into learning, creating, and contributing. They take risks because they know failure will be treated as a step, not a stain, and those steps lead to innovation. They lead to breakthroughs. But what happens when vulnerability is absent? Silence replaces dialogue. Defensive behavior replaces curiosity. Blame replaces ownership. Everyone appears strong on the outside, while internally they're battling doubt and fear. Stress builds up. Mistakes accumulate unspoken. Burnout follows, all because the culture could not make room for vulnerability. True leadership, true love, true mentorship, none of it is about perfection. It is about presence. Vulnerability says, "I am willing to be seen for who I truly am." And that allows others to say, "Me too." That "me too" moment is where healing begins. It is where growth begins. It is where connection begins. In medicine, we often see how patients deteriorate not because of the disease alone, but because they feel alone in their suffering. The moment someone says, "I understand what you're going through," everything changes. Pain shared is pain lightened. That is the power of vulnerability. It doesn't remove the problem. It invites support to carry it. In leadership, the same is true. Teams don't collapse because challenges arise. They collapse because they face challenges without unity. Vulnerability creates unity. It tells people, "We're in this together," and when people feel together, they rise. So ask yourself not how strong you appear, but how real you are willing to be, because realness builds strength greater than any pretended perfection. Vulnerability is not the end of strength, it is the beginning of it. We often view leadership as a fixed destination, a point we eventually arrive at after accumulating enough knowledge, titles, or successes. But leadership is never final. It is not earned once and kept forever. It must be chosen every day, practiced in every interaction, and reflected in every decision. Just as health cannot be maintained without daily discipline, leadership cannot be sustained without consistent intention. It is a process, not a position. In medicine, I often tell patients that healing doesn't come from a single pill or a one-time treatment. It comes from daily habits: how you eat, how you move, how you rest, how you think. Leadership is very similar. It is not defined by moments of glory, but by moments of consistency. It is not about how you behave when people are watching, but how you show up even when no one is there to notice. A leader is not made in the big decisions, but in the small ones made repeatedly with integrity. Leadership requires constant vigilance. The ego is always waiting to slip in, to make it about power, recognition, or control. But leadership is not about elevating oneself, it's about lifting others. Every day, a leader must choose humility over pride, service over authority, and truth over comfort. And this choice is not easy. It demands self-awareness. It demands sacrifice. It demands that one consciously reject the temptation to lead for personal gain and instead choose to lead for the growth and success of others. There will be days when leadership feels rewarding and days when it feels heavy, days when everything aligns and days when everything falls apart. But true leadership is not dependent on circumstance. It remains steadfast even when tested. When people disappoint us, when results decline, when pressures mount, leadership doesn't retreat, it recommits. It asks, how can I show up better today than I did yesterday? Consistency builds credibility. People do not trust a leader because they were impressive once. They trust them because they are reliable repeatedly. They show the same values whether times are good or bad. They stay committed to their principles, even when those principles come with a cost. This constancy allows people to feel safe, because they know who the leader is and what they stand for, every day. Many leaders start with strong intentions, but over time, success can become a distraction. Pride whispers, "You've made it," and humility fades. But leadership is never made. The moment you think you are, you begin to deteriorate, just like a patient who stops his treatment because he feels better, only to relapse soon after. The leader who stops nurturing his character weakens without realizing it. Leadership needs nourishment. It requires time spent in reflection, learning, and connection. It demands surrounding oneself with people who hold you accountable, not people who simply applaud. It requires that each morning, before stepping into your role, you remind yourself, today I lead by serving. And if you fail today, you do not abandon the path. You renew the commitment tomorrow. The leaders who inspire us most are not those with uninterrupted success, but those with unwavering dedication. They may stumble, they may face criticism, but they never stop choosing to lead with purpose. Their consistency speaks louder than their achievements. In medicine, we often speak of progressive healing, the recovery that deepens over time through persistence and discipline. Leadership follows the same pattern. Every day that a leader acts with integrity, courage, and compassion, the leadership grows. Every day it is chosen, it strengthens. But if it is neglected, it weakens, sometimes without even appearing so, until the gap becomes evident in relationships and outcomes. The beauty of leadership is that it is available to anyone willing to commit to it daily. You do not need status, wealth, or perfect conditions. You simply need the willingness to show up with sincerity, to be responsible for others, to make decisions guided by values rather than convenience. Leadership is not about being the best, it's about being the most consistent in serving what is right. And that consistency is what shapes lives, homes, organizations, and societies, not through occasional excellence, but through everyday dedication. So, if you want to lead, the question is not, how can I become a leader? The real question is, am I willing to make the choice, to serve, to grow, to act with integrity, not once, but again and again, even when no one is watching, because leadership is never finished. It is simply chosen today, and then again tomorrow. In life, we often measure leadership and success by how far we have advanced, how high we have climbed, or how much we have achieved. Yet, the deeper truth is this: your true measure as a leader is not how many people you rise above, but how many people rise because of you. The most meaningful form of success is not personal accomplishment, it is elevating others. When what you do is focused on lifting those around you, you create impact far beyond your individual capacity. This shift in perspective, from how can I succeed to how can I help others succeed, is transformational not just for them, but for you as well. We live in a world where self-centered ambition is often celebrated. Be number one, get ahead, make sure you win. These are the messages we hear. But what if true leadership has nothing to do with being at the front? What if it has everything to do with pushing others forward? The greatest leaders understand that their legacy lies not in personal accolades, but in the people they nurture. In medicine, I see it constantly. Health is not just about preserving yourself. It is about improving the quality of life around you. Healing others brings deeper fulfillment than healing yourself alone. The same is true in leadership. Leaders who focus solely on their own success often feel the pressure to maintain status, control, and recognition. It becomes exhausting. They carry the weight of constantly proving themselves. But leaders who focus on serving others find release. They no longer chase admiration. They simply seek to uplift. And in the process, admiration comes naturally, not because they sought it, but because they earned it. Helping others succeed does not make you weaker. It makes you stronger. When someone grows because of your guidance, you multiply your influence. You teach them, support them, challenge them, and then you step back to let them shine. This requires humility. It means being willing to let others become greater than you. That is true leadership. A doctor does not measure their success by how well they stay healthy, but by how many patients recover under their care. Likewise, a leader is not defined by self-promotion, but by how many people flourish under their direction. There is a profound beauty in watching someone transform because you believed in them before they believed in themselves. When you invest in people, your team, your children, your students, your colleagues, you are planting seeds that may outgrow you. And that is not a threat to your value, it is a confirmation of it. In nature, a tree is not remembered for how tall it stands, but for how many fruits it bore that nourished life beyond itself. Think of the moments that truly matter, when someone tells you, "I couldn't have done this without your encouragement," or "You changed the way I see myself." That is worth more than any job title or award. You see, success achieved alone fades quickly, but success shared lives on in others. It expands through generations of impact. A leader who lifts others must possess patience, compassion, and a deep understanding that growth takes time. Just like healing, development is a process. You cannot pull someone to the top. You must help them climb. Sometimes that involves challenge. Just as muscles grow against resistance, people grow through struggle. But they need someone beside them saying, "I'm here." Leadership is not removing the difficulty, but strengthening the person to overcome it. Interestingly, when leaders help others succeed, they often rise in the process not because they aim to, but because people naturally elevate those who elevate them. When your team succeeds, your organization succeeds. When your children thrive, your family prospers. When those around you grow stronger, you become part of something bigger than yourself. Ultimately, leadership is not about being the hero. It's about making heroes out of others. It's about recognizing potential and drawing it out. It's about believing in people so deeply that they begin to believe in themselves. And when you witness their transformation, something inside you transforms as well. So, the next time you think about success, don't ask, "What can I achieve?" Ask instead, "Whose life can I make better?" Because the mark you leave on others is the mark that lasts. When you lift people, you do not lose your strength, you pass it forward. And in doing so, you create a legacy that no title, no achievement, and no personal accolade can ever compare to. In the end, leadership is not about how high you climb, but how many people rise with you. And when they rise, you rise higher than you ever could alone. Leadership is not a destination. It's a daily decision. Start with why. Inspire from the inside out. Lead with empathy, care. Before you command, build trust. Create a safe circle where people can thrive. We don't follow leaders because we have to. We follow leaders because we want to. And people won't remember what targets we achieved. They'll remember how we made them feel while achieving them. If you want to lead, don't ask yourself, how can I be successful? Ask, how can I make others successful? Because when they rise, so do you. Thank you.